Maybe the reason we're not talking about it is, as I understood from the news, and I've been so busy I've not particularly concentrated so far this morning because the news only broke this morning, that there's still more consultation to be done.
Well, no, they had all these consultation meetings, and I was at the one at Freshwater, and I'd say 95% of the parents and the teachers that were there were opposed to the what they were suggesting.
Well, I've heard that about other meetings, but the trouble with these kind of meetings is only the kind of, you know, if 50 people turn up or 100 people, they're more likely to either be sort of political opponents, so there's Tories around the island, so it's probably the Lib Dems, people would argue, or just the people who don't want the change. The people who are quite happy, which is the vast silent majority, you know, do you count them or not?
Hi, who's this?
It's the Professor.
Hello, Professor, how are you?
Yeah, I think what the doctor said is quite right. A lot of the meetings, you only get the die-hard activists, and, you get a minority view. Because I was at the meeting last night, and for a start off, if everything goes to plan, because they've got to visit a similar council's education system that does a similar idea on the mainland.
It's like people who write to local papers, Professor. You know, you would get, if you get 10 people writing to a local paper about one subject, a lot of people think the whole of the Isle of Wight or the whole of the community wherever you live is interested here. You might get another 3 or 4 letters the next week, and maybe 3 of the original 10 will write back. The whole thing can go on for weeks and weeks and weeks, and everyone thinks it's a massive issue, and it's not. It's just a few people who feel passionate.
The local paper on the island is full of letters from the same old people.
Yeah.
If I can just say that the earliest date this will start, if they get all the studies and everything done, and the implementation won't be until September 2009. So, you know,
by then, that guy's, most of his kids could be out of middle school.
Some people think that because something's passed, it's going to be there in 2 weeks' time.
Yeah.
That's in cuckoo land, really.
And of course, it has to be said, Professor, that the reason the council, the new council, only been there just over a year, are desperate to make changes is because our education results on the island have been among the worst in Britain.
Correct.
Something desperately needs to be done. That's why the Lib Dems, who've been around for probably 15 or 20 years almost, were removed, people would say, almost wholesale from the council. 48 councillors there were. I think Lib Dems had a majority for most of the past 20 years. Pretty much all but about 2 councillors now on the Isle of Wight are presently Conservatives or Independents. So,
also they stockpiled, or whatever the word is. There's 13 million the Lib Dems didn't spend on education.
Apparently so, yeah.
Which is a total, you know, they keep these things quiet, and the 1 or 2 people that sort of suddenly turn up at meetings, and they should be grateful that somebody's actually taken the trouble to do something about these candidates.
All right, Professor, we're going to leave it there. Go on to another call. Thank you very much. Hi, who's that?
Hello, it's David Porter.
Hello, David.
I'm the negotiating secretary for the NASUWT on the island, which is the largest teachers' union on the Isle of Wight.
Oh, yeah, you've been in before, haven't you?
Yep, you represent teachers.
Yeah. We, in the profession...
Hang on, before you go any further, in a nutshell, what does all this mean to people whose children will be in middle school in 2009?
It's not so much the middle school. The middle school will mean that we're having to look after the educational needs of the children for 1 more year. The trouble is that the schools have got specific units like science laboratories, gymnasia, even toilets, which are geared to the number of pupils which are in the school at the moment. You're going to have approximately 100 extra pupils into each of the middle schools. You cannot teach science, for example, in ordinary classrooms successfully and still do all of the practical which is required. The provision in the middle schools is going to need a tremendous amount of money being spent on it. The next big problem is that when the children are going up to high school, it normally takes about half a term for them to settle down and get used to the new regime and mixing with people from many other of the middle schools who have all been taught the information at different stages in the last few years in the middle school. All of this has got to come together and be correlated in the first year in the high school.
How many children have you spoke to about this, David?
Oh, God. I've spoken to quite a few while I've been moving around, but the trouble is that you can't it's a very, very difficult thing to do in a classroom in a school, because immediately you will be accused of potentially trying to influence their opinions on it. It's very, very dangerous for teachers.
How old are you, David?
Me, I am 64.
Right, because the way I'm looking at it is here you are. You're a 64-year-old man. Trying to get your point across about what is good for children, for education, socially, what's good for them.
I have been in the profession.
Hey, yeah, I know. I don't.
40 years. I am a professional teacher with a huge range of experience in both middle school and high school.
I'm not saying you're not, David. I'm not saying you're not, but I just wonder how many children you've asked emotionally. How will this affect your life?
Emotionally.
Emotionally, not academically, emotionally.
It won't have any effect on my emotions.
Not your emotions, their emotions.
On their emotions?
Yeah.
Their job in school and my job in school, my job is to pass over the information to teach the children, and their job is to learn it.
But it's surely interested in the whole person.
Hang on, why are you introducing emotion? Emotion does not necessarily get involved in learning.
Well, then I think that, David, you've actually just shot yourself in the foot there, because if you are a parent of children, as I am, the doc is now, those kids will come home, and the most important thing to them is, did they have a good day at school? Did they interact well with their friends? Were they maybe picked on the playground, bullied in the playground? Socially, were they left out of the playing circle? How do they feel about moving up? I've got a lad who's moving schools in September, and already we're telling him how exciting it's going to be, what a great deal it's going to be in the bigger school, the bigger playground and all that. That's what matters to kids. You know, the fear of too much homework.
Hang on a second. You are actually confusing the issue. We're interested in educating the children and trying to get them to have the best possible careers that they can possibly have in their lives.
But exactly, David, and that has to do with being comfortable and feeling secure.
All you are talking about is what goes on in the playground.
No, I'm not.
Didn't say that.
You are.
Oh, I'm sorry, David, but you're not the man for the job. Let me tell you that. If you're not taking into consideration children's feelings and emotions and how they're going to interact with other kids and stepping up and all of that, that will affect their education more than anything else. If they feel settled, warm, happy, comfortable...
Well, hang on. Let's go back to this being settled and warm and happy.